Since we were kids, in order to attract or avoid anything, we were said that thing is good or bad for us. A straight up labeling that convinced us as kids. Not only that, most of the movies and series that we watch every day serve us the idea that how binary things are, and they go on to prove it through their storytelling. Things and people are either right or wrong. That's it. That's how we label stuff, that's how we categorize stuff, and that's end of the story. Notice that how convenient it feels to label stuff, to conclude anything as right or wrong in a very binary way. Firstly, let's acknowledge that our mind is bound to be affected by the information that we consume. Depending on the information, our mind tends to jump on extreme conclusions of that situation. You look at the concept of hero and villain. If the hero does something good, the overall perception, the overall image of that hero turns out to be good. And if the villain does something bad, the overall perception, the overall image of that villain turns out to be bad. The thing is, our conditioning for the most part has been around looking at things with a lens that decides if the thing is right or wrong, nothing in between. Now, in order to think about stuff a bit more wisely, here's a perspective that is better than the childish labeling of stuff as right or wrong. I will be taking two very obvious examples, one physical and the other abstract, to derive three rules or say three learnings that gives us an idea how we should look at the concept of right and wrong. For the physical example, I'm taking water, and for the abstract example, I'm taking honesty. First, excess of anything is bad. No matter how good a thing is, if it is in excess or too extreme, it is bound to mess things up. Just like we know the importance of water in our daily lives, along with it we know that too much of it can drown us. Now let's take the abstract example. Honesty, one of the most encouraged values, is all good when it harms no one. But when a person asks the pin of your card, will honesty be the right thing to exhibit? No, it won't. So from the examples mentioned so far, it shows that too much of anything is bad. Although it feels very obvious to see, yet we often fail to apply this principle to so many things that we already believe in. Ask yourself, what is it that you are doing a bit too much? Questions like, am I overeating? Am I binge watching too much? Or am I doing anything in excess? Now the second thing that we can derive is that things change depending on circumstances, or say some laws change depending on circumstances. At times when a situation changes, the laws change as well. So again, taking water as an example, water is good under the circumstance where we are thirsty, but the same thing becomes lethal under the circumstance of a tsunami. Likewise, honesty is good under the circumstance of effective communication, but the same honesty becomes harmful under the circumstance of telling a stranger about your address. So saying that water and honesty are an all good thing for us is not an accurate statement. So it is wise to think of stuff respecting the situation and the context of the matter. Like speaking against crime is a right thing to do, but doing it among criminals, maybe it isn't. So understand this. Meanings and actions change depending on circumstances. Hence, most of the things cannot be absolute. So when you are dealing with someone's words or statements, try to understand that under what circumstances are those valid. Likewise, under what circumstances are they invalid. Try to think of stuff by respecting and considering the atmosphere of the situation. And lastly, the third learning we can derive from this is to add limits. Ask this question when evaluating what's right or wrong. To what extent is it valid? Entertain the word extent in the sentence. Add limits to everything that is said. Since the very question of right and wrong demands you to be absolute, you should entertain the question by proceeding to ask to what extent is it valid, or to what extent is it invalid. Think of stuff lying on a scale. When you take the abstract example of honesty and lay it on a scale, Not having honesty will cause distrust among people. Having honesty while communicating effectively is good, but when you extend honesty to an extreme end, like being honest with a stranger, it instantly becomes not okay in terms of safety. This is how you should think of ideas and statements of people. All of them lie on a scale. Use your mind to be smart about evaluating your judgment. It doesn't have to be extreme. Labeling honesty as an all good value is not a smart thinking, but knowing to what extent it is good is smart thinking. So try to apply this sort of thinking as a metaphor to whatever you believe in currently. So summing up the 3 learnings, whenever you want to evaluate something, recall these 3 learnings or say principles, and then proceed to form your conclusion or opinion. Excess of anything is bad, things change under certain circumstances, and everything is valid or invalid until a certain extent only. Acknowledge it. Yet I insist, do consider these 3 principles. You have a mind to think. Use it. Get away from the childish labeling of stuff as right or wrong. You are no longer that kid who needed that validation of what's right and wrong to evaluate something. You are better than that. You can think beyond that. Don't blind yourself by labeling stuff. Don't resort to a 2-dimensional thinking. And the people who actually think of stuff are far more interesting because they have good insights to support their accuracy. As a wise person, you should be able to refine your process of thinking and forming opinions. Run this thought process to whatever information you consume, to understand and evaluate the very question of what's right and wrong. And if you really want to judge what is right or wrong and evaluate it, then do it very carefully by specifying its situation and condition, by respecting the context, and try to avoid generalization based on few incidents. Like when a person is throwing garbage on the street, you should acknowledge it is wrong, but you cannot generalize the entire personality of that person based on this observation. Learn to target things specifically, and remember that you want to be accurate, not dumb. And apparently there is one exception that is absolutely right, and I don't see anything wrong with it. Thank you.